NC Impact is made possible by funding from Civic Federal Credit Union. NC Impact is a production of UNC TV Public Media North Carolina in association with the University of North Carolina School of Government.
Manufacturing is facing a skills gap across our state, and it's leaving thousands of positions open. How a 3-county initiative is helping create a talent pipeline for local employers. This is NC Impact. I'm Anita Brown-Graham. Welcome to NC Impact. This week, we're looking at a workforce shortage in manufacturing and how communities are responding by closing the skills gap. Joining us are 3 great friends: Scott Rawls, president of Wake Technical Community College; Wendy Walker-Fox with the Piedmont Triad Regional Council of Government; and Jenny Korn, director of strategic initiatives at My Future NC. Before we go to our 3 wonderful expert panelists, let's look at the challenges many manufacturers face finding the talent they need and the impact this has on their ability to grow. NC Impact's David Hurst reports.
Maybe mirror companies will get them and they'll cut them to their size.
As an HR manager, Jeff Stutz is always looking for new talent.
We're advertising in papers. We're advertising online, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, things of that nature, but it's a struggle.
Stutz is in charge of the hiring at Cardinal FG, a glass manufacturer in Mooresville. He says finding skilled workers has always been difficult, but even more so this year with the pandemic.
I've hired 6 people in the last 3 weeks. I still need 10 more.
It's a shared struggle for many manufacturing companies, and it's why leaders in Cabarrus and Rowan counties created the NC Manufacturing Institute.
This is where teamwork comes in.
The initiative, also known as NCMI, is a collection of community partners working together to address the work shortage.
Manufacturing is good paying jobs. It includes a lot of opportunities for advancement, and it's working in productive teams and building great quality products here that are sold worldwide.
The NCMI began in 2014 and Iredell County joined 2 years later.
We're still working on it.
The initiative allows those interested in manufacturing to quickly get trained and certified and has turned into a talent pipeline for local employers.
They can move in there, learn that company's culture, and be ready to work from day one. And that's a cost saving, a huge cost saving for employers.
That's why it's so hot out there.
Cardinal FG is one of NCMI's partners, and Stutz has hired many of the graduates.
We've come to trust the Manufacturing Institute that they're not just going to shove people off on us.
He says the initiative has also helped with the perception of manufacturing, and it's attracting people who in the past may have ruled out working in the manufacturing field.
This is not the dirty, greasy, grimy old world of manufacturing. It's a whole new ballgame.
President Rawls, let me start with you, if I might. An astounding 6 out of 10 open skilled manufacturing production positions remain unfilled. This is true even in the midst of a pandemic. Could you give us some sense of how did we get to this place of a skills mismatch or talent shortage?
Well, I think as the video showed, manufacturing and many technical workplaces today, it's a whole new ballgame. I worked in a manufacturing facility in college, and to be honest with you, it was easier to kind of park your brain at the door and pick it on the way back out. But today, these types of workplaces, you have to turn your brain on hyperdrive. I mean, they're computerized, they're automated. It's a whole new skill set, but still it's not seen that way by many younger students, and that's why we see kind of an aging of that workforce and not the backfill behind it. It's also heavily male-dominated in many of these technical workplaces, and that's like working with half the workforce tied behind your back, and so that's a challenge as well for us to overcome.
So let's look ahead for a moment. As the economy recovers, how much will the skills gap widen if we don't figure out a way to address it?
Well, it'll widen based on where those skills go, and where the students of the future, the employees of the future follow behind that. I think that, where the skills are going, I mean, we're in a world of smart manufacturing, smart transportation, smart buildings, smart workforce, but it's that, still what some people see as a hands-on workforce, but it's really all a head workforce now and require skill beyond high school, different types of credentials, and I think that's what many of us are trying to rise up to that challenge and provide those avenues.
So Wendy, this is an issue, this skills gap that manufacturers all over North Carolina are facing. Could you tell us what counties are covered by your Workforce Development Board? And then what are you hearing from the manufacturers in your region?
Sure, Anita. The counties that are covered by the Piedmont Triad Regional Workforce Development Board, there are actually 7 of them. It's Caswell, Davie, Forsyth, Rockingham, Surrey, Stokes, and also Yadkin. So you can see the majority of those counties are definitely rural. We have our one urban county, which is Forsyth. But interestingly, we hear the same thing from manufacturers, no matter if they're talking to us from a rural county or from our one urban county, and that is that they need people to fill the open jobs that they have available.
So if that's where their biggest need is right now, how is the region stepping up to this challenge and trying to close the skills gap?
So one of the things that we did in the Piedmont Triad region is we put together a Triad talent alignment strategy. This was an effort that we started about 2 years ago, and it was really to take a deep dive look at the alignment and the connection between education offerings, workforce development offerings, and how those really matched up with the needs of employers throughout the region. Based on the research that was conducted during those studies, we have developed a talent attraction and retention website that really is a voice for the entire region to sell the assets of the region as a great place to live, work, play, and learn. One of the other things that we discovered during that research was that it wasn't so much a skills gap, but more of an interest gap, where individuals maybe just were not aware of the opportunities that were available, in particular in manufacturing as a career option.
Jenny, my future NC is on record as saying post-secondary educational attainment is the answer to some of this challenge. Can you help our audience understand how does that help us address particularly a skills gap in manufacturing?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anita. So last year, the state of North Carolina set a statewide attainment goal that by 2030, 2 million North Carolinians between the ages of 25 and 44 would have a high-quality degree or credential. I think what this does for the state with the role of my future NC and all of the sectors working towards this big goal is it really highlights and elevates the importance of education after high school, whether that's a degree or a non-degree credential. I think Wendy's example is really sets up an innovative practice for cross-sector collaboration, something that my future NC wants to lift up, wants to tell these stories where workforce boards are working collaboratively with our post-secondary education systems to meet the needs of North Carolina employers. And I think that the role of my future NC and the work that we're doing around attainment really helps all of us kind of row in the same direction. Share those stories, those success stories from the Piedmont Regional Workforce Boards, talk about the work that Wake Tech is doing in Raleigh and across the state with really focusing on meeting the needs of employers, our education system working hand in hand to meet and identify and focus on those non-degree credentials, especially in places like manufacturing, that can help North Carolinians get jobs that pay good wages.
I love all the imagery in your collective answers, the new ball game, the rowing in the same direction. And I've got a ton of other questions for you, but let's go to the next story first. In the first story, we were introduced to the NC Manufacturing Institute. The initiative covers Rowan, Cabarrus, and Iredell counties. NC Impact's David Hurst shows us how it works and its impact for those counties.
If it wasn't for that email, I would have missed it.
After working 14 years at the same company, Lisa Boulware found herself without a job when they shut down the facility.
Being my age and, having just bought a home in 2017 and not having a job, I don't know, it's not a real good feeling.
While looking for a new job in manufacturing, Boulware went through the NC Manufacturing Institute.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
She took an 8-week class at Rowan Cabarrus Community College to become a certified production technician.
The next class came up, I got into it, and I made it a point really not to take a job I want to focus on this course and do well in it.
A nonstop training and education.
Stan Honeycutt is the instructor of the Certified Production Technician course. He says students go through 160 hours of training and take 4 national certification exams.
It's not easy, but to know you got an opportunity to make a living, and we all need to be challenged, and we need to contribute to a cause greater than ourselves. And I think that people miss that, and they need that.
The course also offers job readiness training, showing students how to put together a resume and helping them with job interviewing skills.
It just really gave me a lot more confidence in it, because I think that's what I was lacking, was the confidence that I was going to go in there and do well.
Sarah works at...
Honeycutt says on average, 88% of graduates have full-time employment within 1 to 2 months of graduating.
That we'll either give them a good, solid recommendation, or we'll say, hey, this one may be a little bit questionable, and we're not going to pull any strings with either the student or the employer. We're going to tell them the truth.
It just sounded like a great place to work, and I just
Honeycutt says he gave Boulware a good recommendation, and it helped her land a job. Boulware says she had multiple job offers, but went with the one where she felt like she could continue to grow her skills.
There's room for advancement, and there's a whole lot of room for growth, and that's the type of company I want to be with, just to help them grow.
I love that story. Wendy, we saw there a strong partnership between employers and the local community college. Help us understand, how do these partnerships affect workforce development strategies, especially the focus on short-term credential programs like the one we just saw at work?
So partnerships like this, Anita, are integral in the work that we do in workforce development and our strategic vision for elevating the services that we provide to job seekers and also to employers. It really does provide us an opportunity to leverage our workforce development dollars in ways that perhaps hadn't been thought of before. An example of that would be a program that we have in my local area. It's called Triad Career Connects. And this is a work-based learning program that's connected with classroom training. We are able to utilize our workforce dollars to cover a portion of that, whereas an employer could cover a wage portion, very similar to what was presented in the previous story. So that there is a combination of those soft skills components, a classroom component, and then also the hands-on in the workplace, so that students are able to get a real life experience of what it's like to work with a particular employer in their environment.
I love the idea of connecting the supply to the demand and making sure that those are aligned. Thanks for sharing that. Scott, Wake Tech offers a number of career pathway programs, including WakeWorks. Would you share with us what is WakeWorks, and tell us about the responsibility of community college to align their training and certification programs with what local employers are looking for?
Well, thanks, Anita. We now have 2 forms of WakeWorks: WakeWorks Apprenticeship and WakeWorks Propel, which is...
I can't keep up with you. I can't.
and the main thing to know is they're shorter-term accelerated programs designed to give folks an entree into the workplace, either through apprenticeship, which is the gold standard of work-based learning, or through shorter-term credentials that have third-party assessment, and infrequently, where we can, stack them into degree opportunities, so that someone, a lot of times, if you look at it, you need those rungs on the ladder that the job training provides, but if it can also stack into a degree, the ladder doesn't stop. You get to keep growing. So WakeWorks is an entry point that combines work-based learning as well as short-term certification, and the core is working with employers hand in glove.
I love it. So Jenny, Scott just set up beautifully this next question for you. Are we seeing a shift away from 4-year degrees and more of an emphasis on short-term credential programs? Is it both and? Is it either or? Talk us through what people should be thinking as they prepare for the future.
Right. So I wouldn't say, I think that there is a shift and an emphasis that's coming and has been building. I think that the pandemic has really accelerated that with short-term training programs to fill jobs and opportunities, getting folks back to work. Also, all all the way that the pandemic has really accelerated that severe unemployment. There's been a ton of calls for kind of racial justice and really thinking about how we can provide the most amount of opportunities for all North Carolinians, I think is why there has been this emphasis on the non-degree short-term training programs, just like both Scott and Wendy just talked about. And I think it's not just going on in North Carolina. We're really seeing this nationally. The Lumina Foundation, which is one of the national leaders in the attainment work, has just released their strategic plan, and they specifically call out, they have target goals around more adults earning credentials through innovative partnerships with their local community colleges. So the leaders and the examples that we have here in North Carolina are setting the stage for a national conversation for the state, too.
Love it. We have a question that's come in from one of our interviewers in the field. Scott, I'm going to ask you if you'll respond after the question gets asked. Let's take a look.
What is the strategy as far as going into underrepresented communities in underrepresented populations in manufacturing to is there a strategy? What does that strategy look like to recruit those potential candidates for programs like this?
Well, I think the first part of that strategy is to be strategic about it and to realize that that's where, if we're talking about a skills gap, then let's figure out where we can grow the pool, grow the pond in that regard. And that requires us going in more out, as we say at Wake Tech, reaching out into communities that we perhaps have not reached out enough into. And so we pay attention to what those communities are, what those high schools are, getting involved in those areas. And also, as for instance, with Wake Works, we've tried to bring that into the development, bring the community into the development, and also what supports are needed for people to come into a program but stay in that program. So I think strategic means being strategic and forthright in terms of that purpose.
Thank you, Scott. As Jenny alluded to, this is an important question for 2020 and beyond. Each of you has noted that some may still have an outdated view of a career in manufacturing as dirty, dark, and dangerous. NC Impact's David Hurst looks at how the NC Manufacturing Institute is improving the image of manufacturing employment.
During the holidays in 2017, Adam Foley received the devastating news that he had been laid off.
I'd spent like a decade in retail, and it was a low blow. It hit really hard.
He used the layoff as an opportunity for a fresh start. He looked into the NC Manufacturing Institute after his wife, a local reporter, wrote a story about it.
She told me to, give it a shot, and I figured, right now is the best time for a change of pace, so let's see what happens.
He graduated from the NCMI and now works at Boral, a building material manufacturer in Salisbury. Boral and other NCMI partners help fund the initiative through scholarships. The only thing the students have to pay for is their drug screening.
As we continue to advance the technology, being able to fulfill employees and have them come in with adequate skill sets is what's going to really propel the company forward and not only help the business as a whole, but also help the individuals that are coming in and allow them a steady growth path.
For those like Foley who are entering manufacturing for the first time, the initiative helps let students know what to expect when going into the field.
And the machine is cutting material at the same time.
Courtney Silver, president of Ketchy, an NCMI partner, says setting expectations with students on the front end has helped reduce turnover.
They have a sense for this is what manufacturing is and this is what it looks like at different companies in our community. This is the kind of career path you can go on. This is how much money you can make. This is the lifestyle you can live. They talk to those students about those things that sometimes you may not get just going and applying at a company.
For Foley, it gave him an idea of what he was getting himself into, and it motivated him to go back to school to get a degree in mechatronics engineering.
There are so many different avenues you can take with manufacturing. I definitely would suggest that anybody who wants something new, something different, go into manufacturing.
Scott, from your perspective as a community college president, what are some other ways to overcome the unfounded stigmas that perhaps continue to exist about working in manufacturing?
Well, I think as getting into the places and actually seeing what they're like. I mean, there is this notion of, you'll hear dirty and grimy, and manufacturing is just the opposite these days. They're some of the cleanest places you'd find. They're some of the most computerized places you'd find. I think one of the things we also have to be careful about is sometimes we create too much of a dichotomy. You go to college and you have this kind of leafy column type scenario in your mind. You go to manufacturing, you have this kind of dirty, really, to go into manufacturing, you need skills beyond high school. And a lot of times that's moving from a community college to a university. You can do that too. It's not as much an either or.
Wendy, invariably, there will be people who want to know, if we wanted to do something like this in our community, how do we get started? So for people who are watching that are interested in the NC Manufacturing Institute, how would you start something like this in your community?
So I would certainly recommend reaching out to your local workforce development board. We see ourselves as a connector and convener to help develop creative workforce development solutions. We have the ability to really have the finger on the pulse of our local areas and bring together all of those important partners, whether they be local employers, also our community college partners, and our K-12 partners. So we have the ability to bring everyone to the table to really get the conversation started, to make sure that we have the input from all of the important players, and so that we can make sure ultimately that everyone's needs are met.
Wendy, I'll pitch the next question to you. We saw in our stories a number of people who were forced to think about alternative careers because they had lost their job. But for people who just want to change careers, what are the opportunities for training programs? And this comes from Rodney on Facebook.
There are tons of opportunities out there, Anita. I would certainly suggest that the first resource in exploring those opportunities for anyone would be to visit an NC Works Career Center. We have trained individuals in those centers that are acting as career coaches, so they can talk to someone who is interested in switching a career and really lay out a training plan and a path for them to follow.
Jenny, I'm going to give this next question to you. In an effort to push for 2 million credentials, has there been a system designed to track credentials that are being issued? Ha ha.
Ha, no ma'am. Not yet, not statewide, but we are working on it. So there's a group of folks working at the state level. It has been a wonderful partnership between the workforce boards, the Department of Commerce, community college system, Department of Public Instruction, to have some conversations about what sort of systems exist within each sector, and is there an opportunity for us to be working across sectors to be able to get a kind of a handle on how many credentials, how many are being awarded, non-degree credentials are being awarded in the community college system, in our Department of Public Instruction and CTE, the Career and Technical Education, and then by those third-party employer-recognized credentials. Is there a way, maybe working through state licensure or creating some sort of shared system where we're all putting that information in so that we actually know all the way down to the county individual level. I think the Department of Commerce has been leading a lot of work around this cross-sector collaboration. They just released this brand new nccareers.org site that really does give folks a lot of different sort of career inventories and opportunities to see where, if you're a personality and you have an affinity for a certain type of job, these are the places within 25, 50-mile radius that offer, programs to help you earn those degrees or certifications. So I think, they're a huge asset in our state, the Department of Commerce. I think I would certainly encourage folks as they're thinking about new careers and trying to, get back into the workplace, that nccareers.org offers a lot of resources. But yes, we're working on that, the system to be able to count those non-degree credentials across the state.
Thank you, Danielle, via Facebook for that question. It's a really important one. Related in many ways, and I'll give this one to you, Scott, comes from Durham. How can a person make sure the credential they pursue is going to have value in the workforce?
Well, and that's also very important for us, as Jenny was just talking about, making sure that when we're talking about credentials, it's not just every credential, but it's credentials of relevance. Today we have an easier way of doing that because we can actually see through big data postings. So we know, for instance, there are certain fields like information technology, over a quarter of the job postings will require some kind of specific certification. So a lot of times it's tying it back to what are the employers demanding, and really the employers are the ones that drive the relevance of any workforce credential.
And are you able to share that information with your students?
I think that's where we're moving to, because I think we're able to use data to say, we're not just guessing anymore. We can actually show you within our region where credentials make a difference, where they can also be plus-ups. A lot of credentials are plus-ups for students who already have a degree, and we see a lot of students who come back to us as a former graduate school to get that skills plus-up.
Scott, Wendy, Jenny, I want to thank you for participating in what I think is one of the most important conversations we can be having about the future of North Carolina. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching and engaging. There are solutions available to us if we work together. Tell us what your community is doing or how we can help you. Email us at ncimpact@unc.edu or message us on Twitter or Facebook. And you can always join the conversation on Facebook Live. Coming up on NC Impact, obesity is a serious health problem in many communities across the state. How a Gaston County neighborhood is reversing this trend and building a healthier future.
NC Impact is made possible by funding from Civic Federal Credit Union. NC Impact is a production of UNC TV in association with the University of North Carolina School of Government.